And that is the annual Pride March by the LGBTQI plus community, which is taking place in Sandton, Johannesburg today. This comes at a backdrop of a warning by the US Embassy of a terror threat in Gauteng's northern suburbs. But organizers say the march will go ahead to campaign against threats based on sexual orientation and gender identity. For more on this, we speak to SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who now joins us. Mbalenhle, thank you so much for your time this hour. So we understand that the main event starts at 2 p.m., but how's the turnout so far?
Well, so far it seems rather quiet, but as you can see behind me, those who have stalls here have started setting up their various marquees. There is a high police visibility just driving around the square here. We're just a few meters away from the US Embassy, which is here in Sandton. Now, you will understand that this warning of a terror attack was issued by the US in America, just warning that, there might be a terror attack targeting this area, particularly because of its proximity to the US Embassy here in South Africa. Now, we are joined by the Deputy Minister the Deputy Minister of State Security, who's going to speak to us about the contingency measures and their thoughts on this warning. You will understand that there is that statement that was issued by Nat Joint where they allege that there isn't enough evidence to support the prospect of a possible attack. And we now speak to the Deputy Minister, who's going to give us more information around that. You have been here since earlier this morning. You've done your walk around, and what have you seen so far?
Thanks, Mbali, and your viewers. We've been doing a walk around inside the mall first. Life is normal at the mall. The owners of shops, retailers, people are quite excited to see the leadership also, to give them a reassurance message about what has created a lot of anxiety and a panic to the South African public. As you can see, this alert coincides, the timing of it coincides with a number of sport, recreational, and very important events that characterize the uniqueness of our human rights culture in South Africa, including this event. This is actually the fiber of our constitution. We celebrate people regardless of their religious beliefs or their sexual orientation. This is who we are as a country. And we are the envy of everybody in the world. Even the developed democracies don't have this kind of celebrations. People are happy inside. I'm about to go inside again. As you can see, as I walk around here, number of stalls, people are saying we're not scared. These are South Africans, because national security is not just a responsibility of the law enforcement agencies. We will win these battles working with South Africans. We do continuous assessment of the threat, on the threat of any threat to the national security of the Republic on a continuous basis. That's why you see the alert, you see the presence of law enforcement agencies. Not only because of this, we do take into account huge events, whether in sport, like the one taking place in Soweto, because big crowds, terrorism know no boundaries. And terrorism is a global phenomenon. All countries are vulnerable, including South Africa. That's why, having said all what we said, which we repeat what the President said, that the alert was unfortunate, but we do make a call that we take serious any alert. We want to make sure that every time we're on a high alert as a country, and our people must be vigilant, they must be very cautious. Anything that they suspect, it must be reported to the law enforcement agencies.
Now, in terms of evidence, right, what kind of evidence would you say you need to see or get? Because as you know, as you just said, terrorism knows no bounds, right? And terrorism certainly does strike when people least expect it. What sort of evidence would you then need to see or to receive in order to then maybe cordon off the area until, the period is over?
But the role of intelligence is to neutralize any threat. That's why we do continuous threat assessment. It's not to create panic in the public. There are a number of issues that, as intelligence community in South Africa, we would have picked up. It's not our role to go in public and say this is an alert. Our role is to make sure that it does not happen. That's why we have cooperation and collaboration with a number of countries. including at a bilateral level, service to service with US, to say, let's work together on issues of mutual interest, on issues of national interest of each country. There are protocols. If you pick up anything, like we have done ourselves with a number of countries, we don't go to that country and issue and let in that country, because we respect the sovereignty of that country. In the same way, we won't do the same with America. We expect that any country, we are the host to more than 100 embassies as a South Africa. You can imagine the number of foreign intelligence service activities that are happening in South Africa. If any of the services pick up something which has to do with their country or anywhere or here, first and foremost, they must contact the authorities here in South Africa, so that the idea is to neutralize that threat, is not to create panic about it. We'll continue to interact with at a bilateral level with US, how best, because we must work together with US and a number of other states, including UK, as well as Canada and Spain. We must work with them so that we see in future how best do we handle these issues. Like I said earlier, terrorism knows no boundaries. All countries in the world are vulnerable. South Africa is equally vulnerable. How do we make sure that we do not create panic as countries of the world, as states and nations, but making sure that we protect our citizens and their well-being?
Do you feel that the U.S. Embassy could have handled the alert differently in terms of how the terror attack was announced to the people? And do you feel that the manner in which it was announced created some form of panic? And do you feel there's room to have done it differently?
The reason there must be evidence to any alert. Then it's upon the local or domestically. They must further investigate. Based on the alert, you then deploy. There must be action. It's called deployment. So you can't deploy when there is no evidence. You can't just raise an alert. There is no evidence. Otherwise, we'll deploy the entire army or the entire law enforcement of the country on something that does not exist. But I do say, already we're making on a continuous basis assessment. We do take a regard about sport and recreational activities, including the traditional activities, which are a fiber of South African society, whether there's an alert or not. That's why you see a huge presence here, huge presence in Soweto, huge presence in Durban. There's a rugby match as well. You'll see huge presence because we know we are also vulnerable. Besides that, we do encourage countries that have got any issue with us to use all channels available, not to create anxiety and panic among our people. We do have capacity internally to deal with those issues, to neutralize the threat.
But I'm sorry, you have spoken about the contingency measures that you have put in place. This is law enforcement everywhere. But what sort of evidence would you require? Would you require some form of an alert? What sort of evidence would you need to see in order to take the matter, or for the matter to be, not necessarily that you're not taking the matter seriously, but for the warning to be, treated with, it is being treated with seriousness, but in order to take it forward?
Look, we are dealing with intelligence. Intelligence is intelligence. So you don't just give us information which is not processed. That intelligence must tell us that there is a plan by this particular group, these individuals. And I think they are working with these individuals in your country. The location is this, which may be just up the road, as you can see. There is American Embassy. The location and the target is American Embassy on Saturday the 29th, which they did. Then on the basis of which we can then say, let's do domestically, we can do a profile of that evidence and see if indeed that evidence can stand the test of what is called intelligence. But with or without, like I said earlier, we don't want to undermine and underestimate any information. We take any information quite seriously, which is why we've been here since early hours of this morning, walking inside the mall, reassuring other South Africans. That's why we're even here now. We should reassure South Africans that when you speak to the people here, you can see up the road, they all said we are not scared. We've heard about this information, and South Africans were not scared.
Thank you so much. There you have it. That is the Deputy Minister of State Security speaking to us on the security threat to the area, and in the area saying there isn't sufficient evidence to then cordon off the area and shut down the area in light of that attack. As you can see behind me, it is all systems go. It's a normal day here in Sandton. People haven't quite started arriving yet, but it's still early. As you know, that march does start at around 2 p.m. this afternoon. I know that Durban is waiting for us. It's over to you there in Durban.